The Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leisure Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, and the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast, the Parramatta Times.
G'day, it's Gus Walland here from Gotcha for Life and Triple M. I'd love to invite you along to the Mental Fitness Gym. Go to the mentalfitnessgym.org. That is a place where you can pick up some exercises to build your mental fitness, to work on that emotional muscle, those muscles in your head that are so powerful. Please come and join us at the mentalfitnessgym.org for all that stuff to build your emotional muscle and your mental fitness.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. Troy Warner here, and this is, look, I put a question up on the Instagram page which filtered through to the Facebook page the other day about the timings of the Grand Final, the first grade Grand Final, and I said, should the Grand Final return to being played during the day, 3 p.m. kickoff, just like the good old days? I grew up watching rugby league. My first vivid memory of watching rugby league was the 1986 Grand Final, Parramatta and Canterbury, and that was a 3 p.m. kickoff. I used to wake up early in the morning, and I do remember probably watching the first three Grand Finals I know in my PJs. I'd wake up so excited as it was Grand Final day. I'd jump up, go to the lounge in front of the TV, put the TV on, whether it was Channel 10, I think it was Channel 10 back in those days, early 90s, I think it switched to Channel 9, but in those days I think it was on Channel 10, and I would just basically watch all three grades. From about, I think, 10 o'clock, I think might have been the first game of the day. Back then it was President's Cup, under 21s, and then reserve grade, and then first grade. But look, every year this sort of topic gets brought up at across, I guess, all the different rugby league creators and commentators in the game of rugby league about what time is the best time for rugby league, the first grade Grand Final. Now, look, I put the post up on Instagram and Facebook, as I said, so I'll run through a few of those answers and I'll give you my opinion. Now, just for the record, I've just looked up the times, the kickoff times for rugby league Grand Finals, and 3 p.m. kickoff was 1908 to 2000. Now, the first change to that time was in 2001. That was the Parramatta Newcastle Grand Final, and that was played, the kickoff for that one was 8 p.m. So that's one of the latest that we have had. I'm not 100% sure whether State of Origin games are kicked off at 8 p.m. and they're on a Wednesday night, but for first grade rugby league NRL, it was 2001, 8 p.m. Now, back in 2002, it went back to 7 p.m. So 2002 to 2007, it went to 7 p.m. Now, in 1997, before the NRL started in 1998, the Super League Grand Final, that was a nighttime match, and that was at 7 p.m. as well. So 2002 to 2007, it was at 7 p.m. And then at 2008 to 2012, it was a 5 p.m. kickoff in first grade, which isn't a bad time. 2013 to 2020, it was 7:30 p.m. And 2021, it was a 6:30 p.m. Now, the reason that was a 6:30 p.m. was because of daylight savings in Victoria and New South Wales, and it was 7:30 in New South Wales. So, look, effectively you could say a 7:30 p.m. kickoff, but in Queensland it was 6:30 p.m. And then 2022-23, and I believe the current day, it is 7:30 p.m. on a Sunday night, the first Sunday in October. So, look, they're the times that I have found through the internet as to what the grand final kickoffs were. So, a little bit of varying ones there, from 3 p.m, 5 p.m, 7 p.m, 7:30, 8 p.m. There was only one. So, look, as I said, majority were those 3 p.m s. Right up from the start of the game, 1908 to 2000, and then there was five at 5, and then there was a few 5 at 7 p.m, and it looks like that 7:30 p.m. is that time that most of the grand finals have been played of recent time anyway. Now, look, a lot of factors come into this. I guess it has to do with the biggest factor I would think that would have to come into this would have to be with the broadcasters. They pump a lot of money into the NRL, and Channel 9 have the exclusive rights for the grand final. I do believe that Foxtel, they do show a replay of the game afterwards with their own commentary, but Channel 9 actually have the live broadcast now, the same as the State of Origin throughout the series, throughout the season. So, look, broadcasters, they would have a big influence on that one. Look, the AFL, they have a 2:30 p.m. Bounce off or ball up, I think it's called in the AFL. Someone will correct me on that one, no doubt. But they have a 2:30 p.m. one, and their game finishes about 5:30ish, 5:15, 5:30ish, I think it is. So look, if you're having a 3 p.m. kickoff, your game would finish about 5 p.m. And likewise, because usually if a game usually goes for about 2 hours, so obviously 40 minutes each way, probably about a 10-minute half-time break. So you'll probably allow about 2 hours for each game. So 3 p.m. you'd have a 5 p.m. finish, 5 p.m. you'd have a 7 p.m. finish, and so on and so on. Now, when it comes to broadcasters, obviously, how does it get broadcast on TV, what it looks like as well. I guess you could have fireworks and the like. I mean, the AFL, they do have day fireworks, but look, to be honest, day fireworks don't look as good as nighttime fireworks. But look, we're not there for fireworks. But look, if we have a look at the TV ratings during these times, the biggest ratings for Channel 9 total Australian viewers was actually 2005, so 4.103 million. So that was the biggest result. That was North Queensland versus the West Tigers. So another factor that comes into this as well, I guess it would be the teams that are playing in these grand finals as well, because obviously, if you've got an interstate team, you would have a lot of viewers as well, because not as many fans would travel to the game. Sometimes if you would, so you would have a lot more viewers. Obviously, as well, if you'd have two interstate teams, then you'd have a lot of viewers as well, because again, not as many people could actually get to the game as well. Remembering that a core stadium can only hold 82,000, I think it is. So a lot more people will be watching it on TV. The year after, it was 2.56 million, jumped up to in 2007 to 3.7 million. And then basically from 2007 through to 2018, it was about that 3 million, close to 4 million range. That it dipped a little bit in 2019 to 2.725 million. 2020, 2.756 million. Now, that was the Parramatta Penrith Grand Final. 2020, last year's Grand Final, Brisbane and Penrith, 2.916 million. So it dipped a little bit in those 2 years from that 3 million range. So is it the timing of the Grand Final? Now, look, it is a New South Wales public holiday on the Monday. Fortunately, this season, 2024, it is school holidays as well. So kids won't have to go to school, obviously. They'll wait on a public holiday as well anyway, but it is a public holiday the Monday after the Grand Final in New South Wales. So that potentially may have a little bit of a bearing on the figures as well, but the timings of the Grand Final as well, because of that factor that it is a public holiday. Look, some people will have to go to work, obviously, but that's a little bit of a scope on the figures for the Grand Final. Now, if I just go through some of the comments on Instagram and Facebook from some of the listeners of the podcast and followers of the podcast, and we'll go to the Instagram page first. Adelaide Rampage, he said it's a no for him, purely for economic reasons. Ratings are higher, especially nationally, thus more revenue. And that's what it's all about with the timings of this Grand Final, is the fact of revenue from the broadcasters. Day Grand Finals are better at the game though, so yeah, definitely at the game it is better. And look, the game, if it was a 3pm kickoff, it'd be off by 5pm, it'd be finished by then, and the celebrations obviously start for the winning team. The losing team and the losing team fans would probably want to get out of there as quick as possible. I remember in 2022, Parramatta lost. We didn't hang around. We hung around for the whole game, but pretty much as soon as that full-time hooter went, I did anyway, and many other fans, we went back to Parramatta Leagues Club pretty much straight after the game. So for the winning team fans, they hang around generally. So that's about 6 o'clock, 6:30 maybe. So the night would still be only young, you could say, so plenty of time for celebrations. If you have a 7:30pm kickoff, well then the game will finish about 9:30pm. Probably the after-match festivities, again, as I said, the losing team fans may go home. The winning team fans would hang around. They would spend, that'd be probably about 10:30, 11:15. Teams don't usually leave Accor Stadium. They usually stay there for a long time. You have seen pictures on social media before of teams sitting out in the middle of Accor Stadium singing the team song, just really bonding together, and that could be like midnight or 12:30 or something like that. For a team like Penrith that have done it over the last 3 years, well, Penrith is about 35 minutes or so, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes in a bus, perhaps, the Panthers bus, to get back. So that's probably about midnight or something, maybe 12:30 even, to get back to the Leagues Club if they want to have a celebration there. Generally, though, teams these days, they'll have a celebration at their home ground. Both winning and losing teams would have a fan day after the game on the Monday at their home ground. So some teams would go back to their leagues clubs and celebrate into the wee hours of the morning. No doubt the players would keep on going anyway after that as well. NRLW.Casual on Instagram says yes with 4 exclamation points. Willing Willingto.n says, I was always a big fan of the 5 p.m. kickoff. So one for no, one for yes, and one for 5 p.m. on the Instagram. If we follow over to the Facebook page, which you can follow both the Instagram and the Facebook pages, you will see that. Let's just have a look here about this kickoff time. There was a lot of responses on this one on the Facebook page. Here we go. Adam McKander says yes, but since when did the NRL listen to what the fans want? And look, that is a good point, because a lot of people think that the NRL should listen to what fans want, because without your fans, you don't have a game. So, and within reason as well. I mean, they do some things when they listen to fans, but as I said before, revenue and broadcasting is a big thing for the NRL. So, they do listen to the fans, and I'm assuming they take that to the broadcasters, what the fans say anyway. Todd Hampton says 100%, but Channel 9 and the NRL won't allow it. Todd Dorwood, a shout out to him as well. I know he'll be listening. He says, I would prefer a return to Arvo Grand Final, starting with lower grades in the morning, NRLW and State Club Championship, then NRL at either 3 or 4 p.m. That's an interesting one, 4 p.m. That's another option. Now, that would be a great day out at the footy, plus those at home want to have a barbecue to watch the game on telly too. Better time than current night grand final as it is now. Christy Johnson says absolutely should go back to a day grand final, 4 p.m. So another shout out for 4 p.m. there. Would be a good time. Jeff Cooper, day, then the kids can have fun too. Blair Fork Jen says yes. Joe Bevan says 1,000% yes, it should go back to 3 p.m. Dave Johnston, shout out to Dave as well. Great man, great Parramatta man. 5 p.m. kickoff, so he's going into that middle period there. Kayla Marshall, yep, definitely should be an afternoon game. Matty Austin, the Duckman. Hey, shout out to the Duckman as well. I know he listens to the podcast. Look, I know, and I'm not too sure what this one is making here, but he said they can make the grand finals cheaper if they played them at 8:30 p.m. on a Tuesday night in the middle of July. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen, I don't think. That's according to the people who run ANZ Stadium, or whatever it's called these days. So, yeah, I don't think that is going to happen. Look, an interesting one here, Robert Driver. Shout out to Robert. He is a listener of the podcast. He has been a guest on the podcast all the way from the USA, the United States. And he says, as a United States resident and citizen that loves the NRL, it's the same with sports over here. Whichever time draws the biggest ratings and ad revenue is when they'll play it. So American sports are along the same sort of lines as the NRL as well, with the revenue that they make, the money that they make from playing ads during the grand final. The NRL and TV people don't give a rat's ass about what the fans want or think. So, again, another comment about what the fans want as well. So, shout out to Robert as well over there in the USA, and likewise to all the other USA listeners last week, especially that listened to the podcast, had a massive following and listening from the podcast as well, especially from Los Angeles as well. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that one. Look, I did put this question in my Parramatta Eels fan group as well on Facebook, Paras Eels Army. So if you're a Parramatta fan, then join that one. We did have a lot of comments about that one. Di Walker, yep. Donald Hoogworth II, 3 p.m. is better. Tony Gatt, yes. Diane Russell, yes. Matt McDonald, absolutely. Wayne Driver, yes, bring back 3 p.m. kickoff. Chris Neeram, yep. Jeffrey Atherton had a very good answer here. As long as Para are in it, I don't care. Go you Eels. So I like that one. He doesn't matter what time it's played. Schrock to get us. Traditional Sunday Arvo Grand Final were the best days. Lower grades first, President's Cup, reserve grade, then first grade. It was a whole day experience of footy, then a game with friends and fam on the front yard. So, yeah, good comment there. Robert Small, yes, the good old days, 3 p.m. is fine. Jay Roach, don't matter what we think, mate, it'll never change. 2 words, television advertising. I think you're pretty much spot on there. Adam Mahmood, I'm okay with a 5:30 p.m. kickoff. Now it's too late by the time it starts. Now everyone is drunk or sleeping, okay? Yes. Sylvia Goved, yes. Janelle Kirkbride, definitely 3 p.m, just not the same, played at 7:30 p.m. Jean Johnson, 3 p.m. Billy Neal, 3 p.m. Judy Muller Ainsworth, prefer 3 or 5 p.m. Alec O'Connor, 5 p.m, so it's not too late and you can go out afterwards. And that was a good point brought up there. And that's one of the things that I think about as well. Nicole Wilson, yes, 3 p.m. would be good. Paul King, no. John Saxby, should be 3 o'clock. Theo Duckett, don't care, just want the Eels to win a grand final. Yes, that is true. Julius Uvaya, I'll give my option when Parramatta makes a final. Right now, who cares? Sharon Camilleri, shit, yeah. 3 p.m. for her. Phil Martin, I always like the 3 p.m. start as we'd have a barbecue and beers before kickoff and then plenty more during the game. Stephanie Pritchard, yes. Amy Mitchell, 3 p.m. for sure. Sounds nostalgic, but reminds me of my childhood. Family would gather for a barbecue, face painting, badge making. We would all watch the game together, the good old days. Rodney Duwog, yes, 100% for sure. Matthew Rowland, 3 p.m. Anthony Cashman, 3 p.m. Sunday. Michelle Nugent, the AFL just does the grand final so much better because of the time slot and entertainment. It should be about making memories with families, including littlies that love our game. And that's a very important point there, Michelle, that you have made there, because we should be encouraging these kids that love the game to get to the biggest games of the year, or indeed watch them on TV. And the later they're on, that's not going to happen. So a very good point there. Peter Gage, 3 or 5 p.m. as long as it's in the day. Alan Phillips, 3 p.m. Stephen Barkos, 4 p.m. John Barakat. It won't be 5 or 5:30 because it will clash with the 9 News. Very interesting point there. I am sure they could potentially have a 8:30 or 8 p.m. news bulletin maybe. I know that would be prime time, I would think, on a Sunday night, but good point there. Kim Brown, 3 p.m. on a Sunday was much better than this nighttime nonsense. Fans before adventuring and ratings. Greg McPhee, they did revert back to 4 p.m. start for a few years. Para vs Storm was one of them. That was the ideal team. Leave them there. So, look, there is a lot of comments there. Frank Grimer, I don't think it should be 7:30 p.m. nor 3 p.m. Too late and too early. I think it should be 5 p.m. Sunday, just sitting and don't get home too late. Gary Hodgkinson, me personally, I like the 3 p.m. kickoff as family and friends come over for a barbecue and watch the game. If Para play, I'll be at the game. Kerry Duncan, definitely agree, 5 p.m. Mark Rideau, 3 p.m. Look, thank you very much to everyone on the Instagram page and the Facebook pages who commented on that and your thoughts. Now, look, my thoughts would be, let's go back to a 3 p.m. kickoff. And I know that everyone will say that cannot happen because of the NRL and the broadcasters and the money that they make from having it on at 7:30, because that is prime time Sunday night. But I just like the idea of waking up. You can have a grand final at your home. You can have a grand final breakfast. Some people mentioned they're gathering around for a barbecue or, probably a barbecue. That could be a podcast for another day about what is your grand final food or entertainment or day. How does your grand final day run? Most people would have a grand final barbecue. You'd have your game of backyard footy. If you're a die-hard rugby league fan, you'd watch the under 21s. There is no under 21s competition these days, so I think they would put the interstate championship on then. And then instead of reserve grade, you would have the NRLW grand final, and then obviously the first grade grand final. So look, I think 3 p.m. could work. Already, look, I would love to go back to the old days and 3 p.m. Even a 5 p.m. Kickoff would be good. But look, how about I meet in the middle and go 4 o'clock? That'd be all right, wouldn't it? That'd be a great middle, I think. Look, and then you could have an hour after for celebrations, obviously seeing your team raise the trophy. And then when they start to go on their lap of honour, you could go to the news at 7 o'clock. I guess that would still be prime time. Go 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock and then put 60 minutes on a Sunday night. There you go. Just get me a job at Channel 9. Look, as I was mentioned, it is due to the broadcasting revenue, and they want the prime slot so they can get the ads in, so the TV networks can get the ads in, and so the TV networks can then pay the NRL their revenue each and every year. So, look, I understand why they do it, but yeah, I'd love to go back to a 3 p.m. kickoff, maybe, as I mentioned, a 4 p.m. kickoff, just to get that earlier on in the day. Because then, look, if your team wins, then you've got plenty of time to celebrate that victory into the night, instead of celebrating it at the ground and leaving the ground at 10:30, 10:45, and then getting back to the leagues club or wherever you're going back home to, and then celebrating at midnight, 12:30, and then you've got to get up the next day to go to the fan days. Look, if it was an earlier kickoff, then you could just you'd be home a couple of hours earlier, if not staying out anyway. But look, majority of people would probably go home, I guess, and try and get a couple of hours sleep, I guess, and go to the fan day, much like the players would do as well, I would assume. Look, thank you very much for listening to that. As I said, I'll put a question up each and every week, maybe a few more questions throughout the off season. But look, get involved on the Instagram page and also the Facebook page as well, Para Cave Podcast. Just look that one up, and look, it's not just a Parramatta-based rugby league. A Parramatta-based podcast. It is a rugby league-based podcast, so there could be questions about all types of rugby league issues. So if you're a rugby league fan, or if you know someone who is a rugby league fan, then please steer them my way and give the pages a follow on Instagram and Facebook as well. Thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and enjoy your grand final day. I know they're not playing, but as I always say, go Para!
Hello, Paracave podcast listeners. My name is Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty and long-term sponsor of the Paracave podcast. If you're looking to sell your property or buy, or just curious to know what your property is worth in today's market, Give me a call today on 0421 588 445.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.